After the first presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, if you kept your TV tuned to ABC, you would have seen an episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live. Jimmy decided to assemble a fake panel of commentators to talk about the debate. One of those panelists was dressed up as J.D. Vance, and the comedian may have looked familiar to you.
Donald Trump will make sure that no one ever eats cats in America again, or my name is not Jeffrey Dahmer Vance.
What? Whoa, hey.
Underneath the J.D. Vance costume, you could see the intense blue eyes of Haley Joel Osment, the former child actor, now fully grown actor. In 1999, Haley became a household name for his starring role in The Sixth Sense. He was only 11, but his performance opposite Toni Collette and Bruce Willis was absolutely packed with pathos and intensity.
I see dead people.
In your dreams? While you're awake? Dead people like in graves and coffins?
Walking around like regular people. They don't see each other. They only see what they want to see. They don't know they're dead.
Haley was nominated for an Oscar for that role. He lost to Michael Caine, who admitted in his speech that he expected to lose to Haley. By that point, Haley Joel Osment had been acting on TV and in movies for years, starting when he was 5 years old. He was spotted in an IKEA by a casting agent, which led to a Pizza Hut commercial, and then a role in a gigantic movie.
This is my very good friend, Mr. Gump. Here, can you say hi to him?
Hello, Mr. Gump.
Hello?
Oh, can I go watch TV now?
Yes, you can. Just keep it low.
After playing Forrest Gump's son, also named Forrest, Haley stayed busy on TV sitcoms and dramas. There was a Spielberg movie, Artificial Intelligence. In 2003, there was Secondhand Lions, where his co-stars were Michael Caine and Robert Duvall. And this was all before he finished high school. Now Haley's in his mid-30s and back living in Los Angeles after years in New York during and after college. And for someone raised under the glare of movie-making lights, Haley did not strike me as very Hollywood at all. In fact, Haley Joel Osment may be the world's most well-adjusted millennial. And we talk about how that happened. This is Death, Sex, and Money. The show from Slate about the things we think about a lot and need to talk about more. I'm Anna Sale. Haley Joel Osment's latest movie is called Blink Twice. It's a psychological thriller directed by Zoe Kravitz that mocks the excesses of celebrity culture and its privileges. It was one of the first big projects Haley shot as the industry was transitioning out of COVID lockdowns.
One of the things that stuck out to me initially was like, oh, cool, we're all going to go off to an island together and
hang.
live there together and hang. And that was an important part of bonding as a cast.
I see. So what I hear you saying is you were ready for a party. And this proved to be
a work party, yeah.
And I guess, how would you describe your level of appetite for scenes like that in Hollywood right now? Like the party scenes where everybody turns out, everybody looks good. Do you like going to those kinds of industry scenes?
I don't have a whole lot of experience with that. I mean, when I was growing up, I definitely wasn't going to any of those except for, the actual nights of award shows and things like that. And I certainly wasn't staying very late.
You weren't at the Chateau Marmont as an 8-year-old?
No, I was not.
It was more like the opposite. Haley's dad is in the arts, but not movies. He's an actor who was a director of a local theater. That work brought he and Haley's mom out to Southern California from Alabama, where they both grew up. Haley's mom is a public school teacher.
I think both my parents had a really healthy skepticism of celebrity and of the industry, start at the very beginning and then throughout my career to this day. But also that was a time where things weren't as interconnected as they are now with social media and the internet. And even when I was working on high profile things, it was still mostly possible to have a private life that was separate from all of that. I do remember them. It probably was the sixth sense when I started getting recognized in public and everything. And they had a very, good way of dealing with that and about how to be polite to people and to, respect people's compliments and everything. But I forget the exact wording, but, essentially to not let it go to your head and to know that for every compliment you receive, you can't, that and the criticism you can't really let define you, I guess. Like you really, both of those things are, you have to acknowledge them, but you can't really let them have anything to do with your self-image or let them, give you a big head.
Mm-hmm. Can you describe for me what it was like working on scripts with your dad in particular as a child? And what are your memories of how you were taught about how to access and express emotions?
From the very first stuff that I did at a very young age, being 4 years old on Forrest Gump, for example, a big part of that was, learning lines was, just the technical aspect of that, about how to go through your scene and, highlight your dialogue and to rehearse it until you were comfortable with the words. But then, my dad, having been a theater actor, from a pretty early age, it was also the, going through subtext and, marking out beats and, charting the beat changes and the emotional shifts that would happen in a scene, which even for characters I was playing as a young child, like that stuff was still there.
What do you mean, like beat changes for somebody who's not an actor? Like, is it like a rhythm thing, or what do you mean?
Rhythm has something to do with it, but it's mostly just if you start off a scene shooting the breeze with someone and then another character comes in and gives you some, tragic information or something like that, that's a beat shift. And for a kid, it was, when you're 4 years old, textual analysis isn't really second nature. So it was nice to see that be, very, diagrammed out of, this happens, this person says this thing, and it changes the way that you're feeling. So, and then, more complicated is when a character might be feeling something that they aren't sharing with somebody else. That was certainly the case with my character in The Sixth Sense, is that he had this big secret to hide from everybody in his life. So there would be a scene, over the dinner table with his mother, and he would be feeling certain things about an experience that he had, but he would be hiding that from the person he was talking to.
If we can't talk to each other, we're not going to make it. Now tell me, baby, I won't get mad, honey. Did you take the bumblebee pendant?
Oh.
You've had enough roast beef. You need to leave the table. Go!
Those sorts of little, sleight of hand that you do with a character was something that I had early exposure to. But it's funny because, it's acting is an art, but there's also like a practical approach to things too, and there's a craft of it. I was just watching the director's commentary for the first Alien with Ridley Scott, and so many of the little, the comments that he was making were just very practical choices to make about how these two characters are feeling towards each other. Or that, Ripley would be an officer who would, assert herself in this way, and this conflict they'd have at this point in the movie would set up this thing happen. Just things that you're solving puzzles, beat by beat throughout a script, that over the course of a movie kind of stitch together and make the whole. And I think my dad really, the way that he took me through those early scripts sort of helped me have that relationship with making things.
Yeah, making things. But I wonder also if it made you more attuned to all the different things that were going on socially that maybe kids who are thinking more literally about what's going on around them don't pick up. Like, do you think it made you more emotionally attuned to how complicated life is at an earlier age than maybe other kids?
Kids are pretty perceptive, so I don't know whether it gave me more of it helps you put a name to things. So, there's part of your earlier question that I didn't answer about how to access certain emotional experiences. And a lot of the characters I played were going through things that I had, would never experience nor would hope to experience. So as you get, when you're, 8 or 9 years old, it takes, imagination to figure out what it would be like to go through something like what my character in the Sixth Sense was going through. So yeah, even now, it's a blend of when you're making a character, you're using things that you do have a very clear memory of, but also you have to stretch your imagination and just sort of find a way to think, what would it be like to be walking in this person's shoes?
Uh-huh. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and the 5-year-old is still in that life phase where you'll come into a room and she's talking to animals and she's got a whole thing going on, and she doesn't always know what's real and what's not real. And so to think that you got to figure out how to channel that as a practice, it didn't get kind of beaten out of you with the rigors of, having to leave it behind. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's I feel very fortunate, and it's not just having good parents, but also I think at the time that I was that age, I think there was a really specific concern about not creating an unhealthy environment for a young actor. And all those directors were I think they were nice people anyway, but they were particularly concerned with making sure it was a wholesome environment on set, and that that the kids were well looked after. I know that's one of long before me, that was one of Steven's big motivations, is making sure that it was a positive experience when he would work with young actors on his sets. So I definitely benefited from that. Yeah.
Spielberg. So we're talking about.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. I mean, that's neat that you get to have first name relationships with these people. And how old were you when you first started to feel, whether it was socially or kind of because of the pressure of having had such success so early, when did you become aware of maybe some of the trade-offs, the downsides?
I think the only downside in general for me, the trade-off, is the inability to not be recognized. That later on, that was something that, and again, it's not the worst thing in the world, but sometimes you do wonder what it would be like to be able to walk around a city and not have to, wear a hat and sunglasses and things like that. It interferes with your ability to be a passive observer with things, because a lot of the times people will be watching you. So that's one trade-off. Yeah.
And I think to not have privacy when you're coming of age, to not be able to observe without being noticed. Adolescence in particular is such a clumsy time, and to feel like you're being watched. Did you kind of recede from engaging in public, and maybe how your peers did, who you went to school with?
I didn't feel overly watched like that in my day-to-day life. I went to the same school from 7th grade through senior year, so it was pretty much the same group of students, and people knew who I was, but it was an environment where I felt really comfortable and not, singled out or anything like that. And, friends, all my friends were not in the entertainment industry. That was, I think, a benefit, because it wasn't something that I felt like encroached on everything.
And you would kind of come and go when you had projects you were doing for work?
Mostly in the summer. We shot Secondhand Lions in the summer before my freshman year of high school.
Okay, Secondhand Lions is with Michael Caine and Robert Duvall.
It was incredible, and it was funny because that was 22 years ago, and at the time we were thinking, wow, we're all so lucky to get the opportunity to work with these legends in the latter portion of their career, and both of them are still making movies into their 90s, which I think is really cool.
If my mom calls, can we hear the telephone out here?
Don't have one.
No telephone? Is it okay if I go inside and watch television?
Ain't got one.
No television? What do you do?
That's Haley Joel Osment with Michael Caine in Secondhand Lions. Coming up, we talk about navigating early adulthood after childhood fame. Many of you have recently become new members of Slate Plus to support the work of the Death, Sex, and Money team. Thank you. Our listeners have always been a part of how we make this show and how we pay for it. But it's just been in the last months that those of you who become Slate Plus members also get more Death, Sex, and Money in your feed. It's been our way to say thank you for supporting our work, and these exclusive drops for Slate Plus members, they've been fun to make. They're similar to the show, but also different and loose in a way that's been interesting for me to host. Like, I got to talk to personal finance journalist Charlotte Coles about losing $50,000 to a phone scammer, and then what it was like to deal with the embarrassment of other people knowing after she wrote about the experience. I talked to my cousin, Dr. Carolyn Wilson, a gynecologist whose practice now focuses on people in midlife and older, and she answered all my pressing questions about going through perimenopause and what's to come with menopause. I also talked to Succession actor J. Smith-Cameron about how she thinks about giving away and asking for money, and Slate's sex advice columnist talked to me about refreshing your turn-ons if things start to feel too routine. And this week in the Slate Plus feed, I grabbed two other Slate coworkers of mine, culture writer Nadira Goff and senior business editor Katie Krasik, because I needed a water cooler conversation about the shifts in pop music going on. I'm noticing the zeitgeist and my kids move on from all Taylor all the time to Sabrina Carpenter and Chappell Roan. Katie, you are 32 years old. Nadira, you are 28 years old. The other way I'm thinking of this conversation is part of an occasional series we're going to do on Slate Plus called Keep Me Young, where I talk to people who are maybe a little bit more up on things to keep me young. And that is why, while maybe this is a summer pop music conversation, we're having it in October. It's my fault. It's not their fault. Our conversation is in your Slate Plus feed this week. If you're not already a Slate Plus member, come on in. You'll get at least 2 of these extra exclusive Slate Plus drops a month, along with ad-free listening to all Slate podcasts. You can go to slate.com/DSM Plus to sign up. It's $5 a month for the first 3 months. Or you can sign up if you listen on Apple Podcasts, and also now right in Spotify, if that's how you listen. Just go to our show pages there. No matter where you listen, I do hope you do join Slate Plus. We are having fun making these extra episodes for you, and your support enables us to make more new episodes for everyone than we ever have before. Thank you. As the weather turns cooler, it is really nice to look forward to football games, curling up with the latest book, hanging out on a blanket under a bright blue fall sky. But for that, you need to reach for your favorite cozy sweater from Quince. And they have cozy sweaters, let me tell you. I have been really enjoying my black V-neck cashmere sweater from Quince and my Fisherman Crew sweater from Quince. I go back and forth between the two, and they are so cozy, and they really feel like they are just as high quality as luxury brands that cost a whole lot more. Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50, and it's not just that. All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. That includes beautiful leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim, and so much more. How do they do that? By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, which passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And of course, premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/DSM for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/DSM to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/DSM. This episode is brought to you by Public.com. Interest rates have fallen, but you can still lock in a 6% or higher yield with a bond account at Public.com. That's a pretty big deal because when rates drop, so can the interest you earn on your investments. A bond account allows you to lock in a 6% or higher yield with a diversified portfolio of high-yield and investment-grade corporate bonds. So while other people are watching their returns shrink, you could be earning regular interest payments. But a yield is not locked in until you invest, so check it out. The good news is it only takes a couple of minutes to sign up at Public.com. Lock in a 6% or higher yield with a bond account only at Public.com/DSM. Brought to you by Public Investing, member FINRA and SIPC. As of September 26, 2024, the average annualized yield to worst across the bond account is greater than 6%. Yield to worst is not guaranteed, not an investment recommendation. All investing involves risks. Visit public.com/disclosures/bond-account for more info. This is Death, Sex, and Money from Slate. I'm Anna Sale. I want to go back to that time when you're finishing high school. You're around 18. When you turn 18, the money you have earned as a child actor becomes money you can access, right?
Yeah.
How did you approach that in your family? How did you talk about it? How did you know what to do?
I was fortunate. My parents were really good about money, and I'm still driving the car that I, I've had for 15 years, stuff like
really?
that. Like, yeah. I don't do like crazy purchases like that. But the craziest purchase I ever made was immediately giving all that tuition money to NYU. So that was the big focus of all of that.
I see. You were like, I'm going to pay private university tuition, and I have to sign the check myself.
That was the big splurge that I made when I turned 18. And then it was cool because I was going off to, I lived a year in the dorms. I was going off to very normal college life. So it was I didn't feel all of a sudden like I wanted to run out and buy a bunch of crazy things because there was just, other stuff going on and a very clear roadmap for how my days and nights would be going for the next 4 years.
Were there like any sort of controls imposed at all, or was this up to your own self-control about what to do with this money?
Yeah, no controls. So I'm glad I don't have a hankering for cars or expensive clothing or things like that because I did not run out and start a shopping spree. I will say I've had a terrific business manager and lawyer since I was a young child. So there was good guidance. And had I lost my mind and started playing roulette in Vegas, I think somebody would have stepped in. But that did not happen.
You have the same team as when you were a child?
Still, yeah. I've had the same lawyer and business manager since I was 5 years old, probably. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And when you decided to go to study experimental theater, having already established yourself as a movie star in not just who worked regularly, but in really fantastic films that have become part of American pop culture history, how did you come to that? Like, I want to get into conservatory where I'm doing some weird stuff. Like, what was the draw?
The audition process for NYU, it was, and it's so funny because I guess NYU was the only college application that had an in-person audition. I think I applied to 6 schools, and went to some hotel on the West Side, and they had a conference room, and they were just auditioning a bunch of kids. And then you had the sheet they gave you when you got there listed all the studios at NYU. And I had not seen this list before, and it had a little 2-sentence description of each of them. And it said, put check marks next to the 2 you think you would be best a match for. And I remember I put one next to Meisner, and then I had a check next to ETW. And ETW is definitely the first choice because it really said, like, you'll get the opportunity to study all sorts of disciplines, with voice and dance and writing and choreography. And I was like, that sounds like a really good all around studio to be in. And that's where they placed me. And it ended up being great because I loved being there all 4 years.
Was there any part of you that felt, self-conscious about being in settings where you were learning amongst your peers and everyone knew you had an Oscar nomination?
It felt very safe because it was a conservatory program, so I was working with pretty much the same small group of people for all 4 years. And also it was a lot of students that were coming in with a lot more experience than I had acting on the stage. Or, I had a friend who got hired by Cirque du Soleil right out of college. Like, it was all sorts of different types of performers working together. So I had a lot to learn. Like, I never was going in there going like, I already know how to do this, because we were just doing different stuff than I was used to doing.
Did it feel new to be working mostly with people your own age?
Yes, that was another thing that really motivated me to want to go to college at that age. You can always go back to school or get your degree, but there is something special about going at age 18 and moving to a different city. And because in my career, I had mostly worked with older actors. I'd worked with people my age occasionally.
Unless you worked with infants, it would be hard when you first started.
Yeah. So to go from that to an environment where everybody was the same age, it was very exciting.
Yeah. And so I know we're still talking about college and you're 36 years old. So when you think, how old were you when you finished at NYU?
22 or 23.
Okay, so you're sort of not even in your mid-20s yet. When you thought about, okay, this is that first phase, period of years post-college, all of a sudden that structure of the conservatory is gone. Was there a period of angst of like, how do I get this going again? In what way? I want to be seen as this kind of actor and not necessarily as just a child actor who's gotten older. Did you have a kind of that sort of nervousness about wanting to make sure you made the right moves right off at that stage?
Not really. And I think that there was definitely other decisions I could have made to try and immediately insert myself back into doing super high profile stuff. But I don't remember feeling any kind of nervousness or angst about what my position was, because I really always just enjoyed what I was working on. And some of that stuff were, small indies that a lot of people didn't see, or projects that you work in development for months and months and months, and they never end up happening. That happens all the time in this industry. But I had enough of those experiences even before college to where it was easy to accept that, and just to know that my goals in this industry were definitely more long term than immediately coming back and getting a big hit or something like that.
You are confirming my thesis that you might be the most well-adjusted millennial.
Thank you.
I have a question about romance during your early 20s. Like, what was it like figuring out your romantic life as somebody who'd been famous most of your life?
I think it's a big challenge for people to date people in the entertainment industry and actors, because an ever-present possibility is that, you'll get a phone call and be like, all right, I have to move to Toronto for 3 months next week. Goodbye. So I, for the most part, have dated other people in the entertainment industry and sort of other artists always. But I was very comfortable always being a gun for hire and saying like, you want to send me to South Africa? Great. I'll go where the work is. So that definitely doesn't lend you to going like, I want to get married and like settle down right now. I knew that was going to be far in the future.
Yeah. Well, and it strikes me, is your mom still teaching school?
Yes, she is.
Yeah. So you grew up in a household where at least your mom's work was, it couldn't be more prescribed. It's a school day during the school year. You know how many weeks she's going to be off in the summer. It's just this structure that the family probably was organized around. Has it been coming from that sort of family that has like that kind of routine around it? Has it been have you had to sort of tell yourself that your sort of adulthood that doesn't have that kind of those sort of rigid building blocks still counts as a kind of adulthood?
Oh, sure. It's I've been comfortable with that for a long time. It's just the way that this job is. My entire life has been, impossible to make plans, even 6 months out. So I'm comfortable with that. But yeah, as you get older, I love making movies. I always love making movies. You do see the attraction for television jobs where it's like, oh, you can kind of plan out your year. Mm-hmm. The job my sister has is very stable in that way. It's like, what your work weeks are going to be, what the hours are. And like, that is a really nice way to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's on a television series. And I'm curious when you think about the kinds of like making your own work in this moment in the entertainment industry, there's a lot has fallen away as far as money that's available for development, people being able to find stable work post-strikes. What's important to you about how you work and how it's funded at this point?
There's giant existential problems with the way the industry is functioning right now. Streaming was really convenient for everybody, and it created this situation where all these companies were, had the stock price going up and up and up. But it was pretty alarming that in 2022, the first day that Netflix lost subscribers, there didn't really seem to be any plans about how to proceed from there when Wall Street turned off the money spigot. And then when these companies have to pull back on their budgets, it's what led to the strike. Everybody just got very sick and tired of them finding ways to find the most innovative ways to pay the performers and the writers as little as possible. And it's going to be a tough puzzle to crack that, we find a way to have a good relationship with our consumers who are very used to getting everything for free now and getting everything through streaming. But I think there's a lot of people realizing that some of the aspects of the old models of broadcast television, and physical media, although it's a fantasy to think that a DVD ecosystem is coming back, that there is a way to have kind of a reasonable balance between the total access to everything and this desire for endless amounts of content and an ecosystem that is going to support successive generations of writers and performers. And in the 90s, with the way that residuals used to be, you could make a living doing some spots on television and living off of those checks. And all of those support systems kind of vanished, and they got rid of residuals and they got rid of these protections. And it saved some of these companies monies, but it also, it just reduce the ability of people who weren't independently wealthy to come up in this industry. And I don't think that's a good situation for anybody.
Yeah. As somebody who came up in the 90s and got residuals, have you needed to work in film and television for money? In your
No, I've been very, that's something I guess I call it checking your privilege, because I've been very fortunate is that I get to work because I want to. And I get to make decisions based on what work is interesting to me. And I get residual checks for tiny television parts that I did in the 90s that are substantial now. And that was the way it used to be.
And you still have a 15-year-old car? I'm interested in this.
It still works, and I like it.
Major life events can be stressful and lead to urgent, unexpected financial decisions, like figuring out financial plans after divorce or navigating inheritance while mourning a loved one. But what if someone were there to provide the qualified financial advice you need to make a sound financial decision as soon as you need it and at no cost? That's where Money Pickle comes in. Money Pickle lets you schedule a free video meeting or phone call with a trusted, vetted financial advisor. And it is important to have a trusted advisor when it comes to your finances, especially on short notice when big things come up. Like when I went through a job transition in the last year, you know who I called? A financial advisor to help me think through what I needed to do to prepare, to think about different contingencies, and it really made all the uncertainty feel more manageable. All of Money Pickle's financial advisors have 5 years minimum experience and a clean history with their current and past clients. Whether you need a second opinion or aren't sure where to start, Money Pickle takes the guesswork out of looking for a financial advisor because they match you to one based on your unique financial situation and goals. Save yourself the stress. Get financial clarity with Money Pickle. Head to Money Pickle now and schedule a free meeting to figure out your financial next steps. Go to moneypickle.com/DSM today. Again, that's moneypickle.com/DSM. You know the podcast Code Switch. It's a winner of Apple Podcasts Show of the Year award, and it is interested in how race and identity shape your world in real and confusing and sometimes funny ways. There's discussions with comedians of color about what makes a good race joke. There's questions about how identities swirl around reality TV, Dungeons and Dragons, and BBLs. Code Switch guides you through all the different spaces that people of color live in and what it's like to navigate them. Like, Code Switch doesn't just talk to you about race and identity in the abstract. It tackles real, everyday questions. And every new episode of Code Switch feels like a love letter to the ways race and identity are always connected and how your life, no matter who you are, is made richer by thinking through them. Listen now to Code Switch from NPR, wherever you get your podcasts. I am really trying to reduce the amount of single-use plastic in my household. I think about the ways that this plastic gets into our water supply, generates hundreds of microplastics that we end up ingesting, and making the environment just more contaminated. One place that I found that I can do something is with cleaning products that I use in my life, and Blue Land is helping me do this. When you order from Blue Land, you get these nice aluminum tins for things like washing machine detergent, dishwashing detergent, toilet bowl cleaning. And you can reuse these containers, fill it with more product, and eliminate that single-use plastic in your household. The other cool thing about the toilet bowl cleaner, it's kind of like a big fizzy tablet that has made my kids really into cleaning the toilet. Blue Land is on a mission to eliminate single-use plastic by reinventing cleaning essentials to be better for us and the planet with the same powerful clean that you are used to. The idea is simple. Refillable cleaning products with a beautiful, cohesive design that looks great on your counter. Fill your reusable bottles with water, drop in the tablets, and wait for them to dissolve. You'll never have to grab bulky cleaning supplies on your grocery run. And Blue Land has a special offer for listeners. You can get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/DSM. You don't want to miss this. blueland.com/DSM for 15% off. That's blueland.com/DSM to get 15% off. When you start your career early, you get to feel structural changes in your industry. That's certainly the case for Haley Joel Osment. He started his career during the era of big weekend openings in movie theaters and sitcom taping schedules that led to reliable residuals. All that's changed now. But Haley still enjoys a night out at the cinema.
I saw Romulus last night with some friends, and then I actually rented out a theater to see Longlegs when that came out last month. I was very excited for that movie.
Wait, why did you rent out the theater?
I'd been talking to a large enough number of people who wanted to see it the weekend it came out that we were like, let's just all do it on the same night.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What sort of friends got to come when you rented out the theater? Is it people you've known since high school? Is it also
yes?
Who showed up?
Yeah, it was a very good mixture. There was high school friends. There's some of my friends I've worked with from the comedy Bang Bang world, which I'm a big fan of, and I've gotten to work on the podcast and the show a little bit. It's nights like that where you're like, oh, this is a nice little cross section of a lot of different eras in my life. And I like when everybody gets to hang out together.
I want to talk to you about the comedy Bang Bang side of you because You are so thoughtful in interviews, and you are very well known for incredible dramatic performances. And then you have these weird ass comedy videos that you've made. And I'm like, what side of this is being expressed? Like, where did this come from? Like, do you, like, how did that happen, that part of your work?
When I graduated college, it was that was 2011, 2012. That was just a really big year for that kind of comedy breaking through. I think that was the year the Comedy Bang Bang television show went on the air for the first time. But I was just a fan of that stuff. And then when those opportunities came up, that and Spoils of Babylon, in a weird way, it was kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the aspect of ETW, of not being too worried about getting it right, that there's one right way to do it. Because doing improv comedy with like Will Ferrell or Kristen Wiig, like it was, I wasn't nervous, but I walked onto that set really wanting to do a good job, and it made such an impression on me that somebody like that, particularly I remember Kristen Wiig, they make you so comfortable because they are so good. They just bring everybody up with them, and all you have to do is just lock in with that person, and they'll take you to the moon. It reminded me of I think Wayne Coyne said this about Stephen Droz. These are two members of the Flaming Lips. Where he's like, Steven is the best musician in the band because he's the one that makes you sound like the best musician in the band. And like improv is like that too. There's lots of people who have that talent. So,
well, they have that talent, and they also give you permission to fully commit, which I feel like that's a big part of it. It's like, how in are you going to be at potentially making yourself look ridiculous,
Yeah.
And when you've had those moments when you're waiting to hear back from gatekeepers of some sort, what have you done with your time to not have it make you crazy?
I've got a lot of hobbies. Sometimes where I think I need to not get distracted with. I love playing games. I'm going to a trivia thing with my friend tonight, and me and my friend, we actually auditioned for the upcoming Jeopardy. I don't think we got the.
Are you serious?
I think it might. But we got to the second stage where we did a mock game over Zoom, so that felt like an accomplishment.
Were you going through the Celebrity Jeopardy channel or regular Jeopardy?
No, regular. The new show, which I'm probably not. I shouldn't be talking about, but I didn't name it, I guess.
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna be on it. Yeah.
That's cool. You might sense me casting about for like for kind of moments of like it seems like you are very adept at rolling with stuff and then finding your spot to do really incredible stuff, but without a lot of emotional drama. Is that just how you present, or is that how it feels inside?
It really does feel like that. I mean, obviously there's constant frustrations in this business, but I'm really used to them. And, we've talked about how my parents prepared me for acting in this industry when I was younger. And one of the best things that I learned to do after you go in for a big audition was, once you walk out of it, that was really good about being like, well, now it's out of your hands, so there's no reason thinking over it. And that's something, with stuff right now where something might be possible, or you hear that, someone did an avail check for you for something. I think I've just had a lot of experience going like, of course I'd be excited to do this, but I cannot dwell on that, or you'll go crazy, because it's such a constant carousel of stuff coming up and stuff not happening and stuff happening and then stuff getting canceled. Or one that is a good example of this was, I don't know if we talked about that pilot for Amazon, Oasis, that I did in 2016.
We haven't talked about that.
It was a really cool pilot. It was Amazon spent a lot of money on it. We went to Cape Town for almost a month and then Namibia in the middle of the desert for a week. It was this sci-fi epic. And it seemed like a show where you're like, this is definitely happening, because we spent so much time shooting one episode of it. The response to the pilot was really great. And then we waited around for almost a year, anticipating moving to Africa for months or for potentially years and many seasons, and ended up not happening. So you get to a really, I don't think zen is not the right word, but you learn to accept these things because there's always another opportunity that's going to come up. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I'm just really coming away with this sense of like how capable of appreciating you are. And I just think that's such a, it speaks to, again, I have this theory that it's because you were given space to like be in stuff, and you weren't told that it was a distraction or not serious. And it's so cool what a full life of art you've made out of that. It's cool.
Oh, thank you. I think you're right. I feel very fortunate that, having that space to enjoy things in that way. And that I had a somewhat steady job since I was a kid, but it was never one that felt like a job. I really love going to work 30 years later. And that's something I can really be grateful for.
Yeah. And I also appreciate knowing that you are kind after seeing you in Blink twice when there's so much bullshit going on.
It's a crazy one. Yeah.
That's Haley Joel Osment. His latest film, Blink Twice, is available to rent on Apple, Amazon, and YouTube. This episode was produced by Cameron Drews. Death, Sex, and Money is produced by Slate. And if you want more Death, Sex, and Money, join Slate Plus to unlock exclusive bonus episodes. We're making at least 2 a month. Plus, you'll get access to ad-free listening across all your favorite Slate podcasts. You can subscribe directly from the Death, Sex, and Money show page on Apple Podcasts and now also on Spotify. Or just visit slate.com/DSM Plus to get access wherever you listen. You'll be supporting our show and the people who make Death, Sex, and Money with me at Slate: Andrew Dunn, Zoe Azoulay, and Cameron Drews. Daisy Rosario is our senior supervising producer at Slate. Alicia Montgomery is Slate's head of audio. Our theme music is by the Reverend John DeLure and Steve Lewis. And if you're new to our show, welcome. We're glad you're here. You can find us and follow us on Instagram at Death, Sex, Money. And I write a weekly newsletter that you can read and subscribe to at annasale.substack.com. And you can reach us anytime with voice memos, pep talks, questions, critiques at deathsexmoney@slate.com. We love hearing from you. Haley has been working on creating some original projects, and he says there's one guiding factor that they all have in common.
Humor's kind of wrapped up in all the stuff that I'm writing, because it's I just have been exposed to too many funny people to write something that doesn't have that element involved.
Yeah, it makes as a podcast host of a show called Death, Sex, and Money, I also appreciate a little humor.
Yeah.
Both and. It always adds to have a little humor. I'm Anna Sale, and this is Death, Sex, and Money from Slate.
I said to Roger, the last thing you are fair and balanced. That should have been my slogan.
When the Fox News Channel first went on the air, it promised to change television.
Few broadcasts take any chances these days, and most are very politically correct. Well, we're going to be different.
It's going to be kick-ass, and I want to be part of it.
I'm Josh Levine. In this season of Slow Burn, we'll look at the moment in the early 2000s when Fox News became a political and cultural force.
I'm okay with wearing an American flag, and if you're not, I think you need to examine who you are.
You'll hear from Fox insiders, many who've never spoken out before.
I was not told about that beforehand, for good reason. I wouldn't have gone along with it.
And you'll hear from the activists and comedians who tried to stop it.
He said, "You're being sued by Fox." I went, really? That's fabulous.
Slow Burn Season 10, The Rise of Fox News. Hear the entire season now, wherever you listen.